Hello and good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this week's new episode of Primetime Gaming with Mr. BoomStick and Friends. And of course, I have brought a load of friends with us. Folks, for the next 2 hours, we are going to be breaking down, obviously, the new announcement of layoffs in the gaming industry. This is now the third day in a row where we have seen massive layoffs. It is very concerning. And obviously, when we get everyone's opinion on what was canceled, who was let go, who was affected, we're going to get into the Pandora's box situation with Xbox. Obviously, you saw the title, and obviously, we kind of look at certain things, and the community is a bit fractured right now. I would say that it's not broken; it's definitely fractured. We've seen some really high profile Xbox fans publicly walk away from the brand. But I think that, being that we have OBM joining us today, he has really broken down exactly what he believes Xbox is doing. Now, granted, I am still going to stand on my square about certain sacred cows never going to another platform. I will continue to beat the drum of brand identity. It's important to me. It should be important to Xbox. We'll see if it is. But again, we're going to break all of that down, and we're going to have a really great conversation. I want to thank the already, 150 people here. We're only a minute, 52 seconds in. I remember it would be a whole show before we had 150 people in the chat, and I cannot thank you enough for tuning in for today. But OBM, welcome back, brother. How you feeling?
I'm feeling all right, man. Yeah, everybody is finally recovered from being sick, and it's a good thing because it looks like I'm going to need all my wherewithals today. So we got a lot to dig into, but as always, it's always a great time. It is therapeutic just to come here and just shoot the. I can't remember. Can I swear?
Yeah, you can swear. It's fine. It's past 7. We can shoot the shit whenever we want.
Shoot the shit here, But it is always a good time to come here and do that with you guys. So, looking forward to getting into something. I mean, some things, aren't as good, aren't going to be as fun to talk about as others, but we definitely cover that. But a lot of things have been going on, and just looking forward to getting into some difference of opinions and some discussions here. But as always, appreciate the fact you thought about me, and I think that with today's panel, we should have some really good discussion.
Absolutely. Everyone's stellar podcaster here, has big opinions, has been on top of the gaming industry news. And unfortunately, folks, like I said, we don't like bad news here, but bad news happens, and we have to. I think it's our duty as representatives of the gaming community, even though we're small, right? Even though we're just podcasters, we're not quote unquote media. I think it's incredibly important to have these conversations. And I will continue to have these conversations because I think the more people that talk about this, more awareness will happen around the industry, and hopefully there could be something done. I know that, I don't own a big corporation, and I've never been in a position where I had to, let someone go because of financial or fiscal issues, but it's getting really spooky out there. Hargeet Chani, welcome back, brother. Obviously, you've been you were with us on Monday, Tuesday, and here you are again on Wednesday. And unfortunately, all 3 days, man, it was very disturbing industry news.
Yeah, it's sad, and I've been on C Money's yesterday, and I was on C Money's right before this as well. But yeah, we just got that breaking news, and it's another sad day in the industry. More job losses, and unfortunately this is not the end. I'm sure there's gonna be more. It's just kind of the way it keeps going. This year's been bad. Like last year was bad, right? And this year is way worse so far anyway. Let's get into it.
Yep, absolutely. And Kay Asante, hey sir, good evening. How you feeling?
Good evening. I am feeling good. I'm sorry, I'm camless today, but work has been murdering me. So I literally just ran in the door and turned on the microphone. But I'm happy to be here with you guys. It's not a good day in gaming. Well, not a good week, I guess, in gaming. There's always some sad news.
Not a good few weeks, probably. And Kay, I feel you, man. I was debating, like, if we had less people, I was thinking about not being on camera myself. My eyes are like, I feel like I've been looking at monitors way too long.
All day, man. All day. It's been a monitor day. So yes, absolutely. But I'm happy to be here with such great company. So yeah, we're definitely gonna get into it.
Well, thanks so much for joining us, brother. Super appreciate it. And I hate that you had a crummy day. Obviously, it's
it happens, man.
Yeah,
you know, these
so
corporate cogs on the wheel. You know, what are you gonna do?
Well, look, let's open up with let's rip the band-aid off, folks. Obviously, on Monday, it was announced that Supermassive Games, who makes some of the most incredible horror games in gaming, had to let go 30% of their staff. That's a big blow. 30% of anything is a lot of whatever, but when you say 30% of your staff, meaning human beings, that's a lot of people. And it's very sad. And of course, yesterday we learned that PlayStation was unfortunately laying off 900 staffers around the world. Obviously, Naughty Dog was affected. Insomniac Games was affected. I actually have a quote from Insomniac Games actually in front of me that is it's something. So we'll get to that in a second. And of course, the story that we're talking about today, and I pulled the story from VGC. Obviously, that's videogameschronicles.com. It was written by Andy Robinson moments ago. And the title of the article, gentlemen, is EA has canceled Respawn's Star Wars first-person shooter. And this comes because of the announced layoffs. And obviously, if you didn't know that this shooter, was announced in 2022, and it was being helmed by former LucasArts veteran and Medal of Honor co-creator Peter Hirschman, who previously worked on the original Battlefront games and The Force Unleashed and more. In a statement published on Wednesday alongside the announcement of nearly 700 wide layoffs, EA Entertainment President Laura Meal said that after
He's botting for me. I don't know if it's botting.
You're botting
not just me. You're botting a bit. Boom.
Yeah. Okay. Yep. Apologies.
It's kind of coming back now. Yeah.
Yeah. I man, this internet has been driving me crazy. It's
have you guys seen some of the storms out here, man? It looks like I thought I was in the Wizard of Oz.
It's bad here. All right. So you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to stop the footage, and I'm just going to bring up the. Again, we have the bad storms, folks. So apologies if I'm botting. If not, I might have to bounce out and bounce back. We'll see. And reset my. Well, that it seems like I'm back. Yeah, I'm back to full power.
You sound good. You sound good. Yeah.
You sound good.
So, we'll start first with Hargeet. Nearly 700 people let go from EA. Comes in a week where it has just been abysmal for the gaming industry, for the development community, and it continues to get worse. We are still, folks, in only the second month of the year, and now we are creeping closer to 8,000 layoffs. It was 6,000 before the announcement of what Sony did. I believe the total amount of total layoffs in the gaming industry yesterday was 7,325. Now we've just learned that another 700 people from EA have been let go. That moves it upwards of 8,000 people, folks. These are human beings with families, responsibilities, and a lot to worry about now. Now, again, they're all going to get severances, I would imagine. If how that is paid out or how that actually plays out depends on your state. California is a fire at will kind of company. Kind of state, which didn't even have to tell you why they fire you; they just get rid of you. I hope that's not the case because a lot of these studios are in the West Coast. What are your thoughts, Hargeet?
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, the gaming industry is kind of going through a correction, and that's going to lead to some of this. It is what it is. The big AAA games thing has been not working out, right? So that model is kind of, it's getting a reckoning. Those games cost too much. That's just the way it is. And if they don't pan out, this is what you kind of get, right?
Yeah.
We talked a lot about the PlayStation one. We know that one's more about the shift to games as a service. Their studios really weren't equipped to do it to begin with. That's failing, and a lot of those layoffs happen to be about that. Insomniac is more about just why they're even making games that expensive. I don't know, but they are, and the cost for them is just so ridiculous. And now you see EA saying, "Yeah, we don't want to deal with it. The licensing is too expensive, right?" It's the same Disney, right? So I'm sure their licensing is just as bad, if not worse. It's Star Wars. So you have to look at the calculus of, is it going to get us enough money back? I'm taking it that Jedi Survivor, is that the last one that came out? There's Fallen Order than Survivor.
Yes.
That did not do well, right? Because otherwise, why would you just suddenly cancel all this stuff? It must not have done well enough, right? So,
well, it was marred. I mean, if anyone remembers, it was marred by.
Bugs,
I mean,
yeah.
it was bad, folks.
Yeah.
I literally stopped playing at Hargeet because of how bad and egregious the bugs were. So obviously, it got around that these problems they were having these problems, and a lot of people didn't buy the game because of it.
Yeah, and that's a possibility that's the reason. But it is a pretty dramatic shift to say we're not going to bother with licensed IP. I assume that does not mean they're not going to license NFL and FIFA and all that stuff. FIFA's the name is gone, but the football clubs or whatever.
Wow.
I assume they're continuing with that. NHL, they still do that one, right? So anyway, I assume the sports games are still there, but this is going to be things like Star Wars. They're not going to do it anymore. That's disappointing, right? But it is what it is. I mean, the costs are just escalating to a point where it's just not sustainable, and the model is causing disruption. There was also just the norm of, as things get bigger, more investment, more money comes into it, and then more scrutiny comes into it, right? And unfortunately, if you're gonna keep pouring money into it, you keep making things, there's got to be enough customers for those things. And at some point it just saturates, right? There's only so much time people have. So unless you can expand that user base somehow, it's going to be problematic. And that's kind of where they are, right? And that could happen. They could expand their user base, but that would be in areas that are not developed, right? So that is something they have to work through, right? So in the Western markets, it's probably as good as it's going to get. You might be able to say, hey, we can move to mobile. Cool. That's a potential.
I mean, they have Zynga, right? I mean, EA owns Zynga. They bought them right before.
Yeah, I don't mean like mobile games. I mean like taking something like Jedi Survivor and making it a mobile game.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Right? Yeah. Because how do you expand that market share to say I can now get more revenue for it, right? But there's another problem, right? If you look at the industry, we've created this thing of free-to-play games with microtransactions, and a lot of kids kind of grow up with that, and that's kind of the model they like. And if you aren't going to attract those customers, if they're not going to go buy a $70 game, well, I mean, it's going to dwindle, right? And so you're kind of at, just like we're seeing with consoles, they're kind of at a steady state, and that's kind of where things are. And it's if you're not going to have growth, this is kind of what happens, right? So you're going to see more of this. Unfortunately, that's just the way it is. They all kind of decided, hey, we're going to invest in gaming because gaming is growing. And well, gaming will grow up to a certain point, and then it's going to kind of like stabilize. That's just kind of how it goes, and you're going to find people will have to be let go. Like one another was saying, like they will find other things. They'll probably have to shift into other industries, right? But this is just how it happens with industries, kind of up and down, right? As far as like you're trying to expand it too fast, and then you have to correct. So it's kind of where things are. It still sucks. It's another 670, I think was the number of people let go from EA, shutting down a studio that was working on, I think, Battlefield, if memory serves.
There was a they didn't specifically say what Battlefield it was. It wasn't mainline. Yeah. Apparently, it was another. According to the report that I have in front of me, it says another Battlefield experience. I don't know what that means. It's probably a small. What it sounds like, and again, I could be 1,000% wrong here. It sounds like it might have been an offshoot. Maybe it would. You know what? It makes me sick to think about. Obviously, the most important thing, folks, and that's why we opened today's show with it. We Mrs. Boom and I pride ourselves of making sure that the human element is not forgotten about in gaming. And developers, actual humans, make these games, and it breaks my heart as someone who's retired, who has a great pension. It's not limitless, but it's a good pension. I worked super hard for it. These fine folks went into an industry that this is for a lot of them, this is their dream job. This is what they went to school. This is what they wanted to do with their lives. And to have to be doing that and have that taken away and maybe having to step away from it is just, it's just sad. And that's why I wanted to open up today's show with it. A couple of shout outs real quick before we let Hargeet continue. Special Nick from Xbox Era, good friend of the show, great friend of the community. Nick, I love you, brother. Got to get you on. And Jez Corden of Windows Central, and more famously, the Xbox 2 podcast is in the chat. Jez, we love you, brother. And first of all, we have to thank Mash. First of all, a new channel member. He has gifted folks 10 double barrel gaming memberships. Mash, that is crazy kind of you, sir. Thank you for the outstanding generosity. That is unbelievable. Welcome to the program. And Jez Corden drops a £5 super chat and says it's awful for the individuals affected, primarily above all. But gaming is so huge, so embedded in culture now. There will be better times ahead. Yeah, indeed, Jez. And thanks so much for being here, brother. And thanks for the generosity. But please continue, Hargeet.
Yeah. So, I mean, this is just symptomatic of what's happening out there, right? What also occurred to me is like these leaks that came out for Xbox of going multi-party. Imagine if it didn't happen, we didn't have those leaks, and they talked about it before they released all this stuff and did it in March. We would have found out that Sony is in trouble, right? And that Sony has to change their strategy, right? And PlayStation might be looking at multi-platform themselves, right? And Xbox says, you know what, we'll take the first step and we'll put a few games over there. Let's see if they'll reciprocate, right? It changes the whole discussion, doesn't it? But this is kind of where we are, right? And now you put things in context and say, okay, well, what Xbox is doing doesn't look so bad anymore, does it? Unfortunately, this is just a different world we're in. They're doing their test, and Sony has to figure out what to do next, which is going to be interesting. I don't know what they're planning to do because it's a very odd situation, right? So their studios were geared to go game as a service. Now they're going to have to shift back. Is that going to extend the timeline for them to release games? We don't know, right? And will the remaining games as a service studios continue their path? We also don't know, right? There's the potential for Concord, Firewalk, I think is a studio.
Yes.
Will that stick around? I don't know.
Oh, is it
Fire Sprite's a different one. Fire Sprite, they already got a hit. They got hit in this layoff. Firewalk so far, they haven't said anything.
Right.
And then you have Haven with Fair Games.
Jade Raymond, her studio.
And I don't know what happens with those games, right? Like maybe they've invested enough that they're like, hey, let's put them out. But you would think they've done that with the other ones. And they shut down London Studio and cut Fire Sprite down. This is just an interesting time for them, and I don't know what that shift looks like. You would expect that the next couple of games, Concord is going to be day and date PC. We already know that it's a live game. Right.
Yes.
Marathon will be a day and date PC and Xbox. We already know that because it's a live game. That's always been their plan. So that those two games that are coming out, the next two games that we expect anyways, will definitely be day and date PC. Will Venom, which is probably the next game they're going to release because Insomniac's the only studio putting games out, will that be day and date PC as well? And it wouldn't surprise me at this point that they would shift away from that. But then what do you do with the rest of your studios? How do you get your games back on track? And if they don't have anything for the next few years, what do you like? You have to attract customers. Are they going to try to money hat stuff?
I think that's the plan. If you remember, a part of the leaks were their plans moving forward. Were before we learned through the financial or the fiscal report that they didn't have any big sequel AAA bombs as they're known for until at least April of 2025. We did learn through the leaks, if you remember, Hargeet, that they were going to, and I'm talking about Sony PlayStation, folks, they were going to be incredibly aggressive in third-party marketing, locking down exclusives. Now, granted, look, they don't have any first-party games, but we have to be fair. The next couple of releases for Sony are pretty impressive. Whether the games turn out to be good or not, we have to see. Helldivers is a tremendous surprise. I've played it. I've really enjoyed it. Final Fantasy VII Rebirth is coming out, I think, next week, if I'm not mistaken. Right? Obviously, you have the two other games, the samurai games. I hate calling it the
Rise of the Ronin
games. Rise of the Ronin. Again,
and then Stellar Blade.
And look, I'm buying both of them. I want to play both of them. I'm playing them because they're exclusive. Now, if they were on Xbox, I would have bought it there, but I can't because Sony locked up those deals. Those are 4 games. Now, maybe they're not everyone's games, but at least there's something if you are a Sony PlayStation fan. I don't know what the rest of the year looks like. I don't think anyone does. I don't even know if Sony does, for that matter. But, you know, it's funny. You mentioned Insomniac Games. This statement came out today, and I got to be honest with you, I was a little shocked. And I'm proud of Insomniac Games because they literally have been carrying PlayStation for years at
Probably
this point.
One of the best purchases in all of,
$300 million was the best money they could have spent. They're making dividends on that.
Yeah.
This Hargeet, this statement comes from Insomniac Games, and I hate that we're all over the place, but it's relevant to the conversation, folks. So bear with me as I read the press release from Insomniac Games. It says this: like several other teams across SIE and PlayStation Studios, Insomniac Games was impacted by yesterday's layoffs. There are no sufficient words to express our feelings about it. This is a solemn and unprecedented moment for our studio. We are focusing our energy on helping everyone affected throughout this challenging time. For those who are hiring, these are great people seeking new roles who made important contributions to Insomniac's history. We're extremely grateful for them, and they will be missed. Insomniac Games. Again, you know, it's heartbreaking to read, Hargeet, and it continues to happen.
Yeah, I mean, it is just, I mean, it's somewhat corporate-y, right? But it is what it is. This is essentially where we are.
Yeah.
Look, you know, Insomniac, you know, we've been pointing this out, at least I have, that the profitability of that game that they put out is not very good.
Yeah.
We got this from the leaks, though. They told us. And, you know, those folks that are working there, I'm sure they got that message, too, from the leaks, that they weren't supposed to get immediately, that there's going to be some layoffs and some team shuffling, right?
Yeah.
So here it is, right? But again, this is just another pattern, right? You know, the potential for that Marvel studio Insomniac to continue the way it's doing. So I don't know what that looks like in a few years. Hiroki Totoki is going to have to take measure and say, well, what makes sense here? How do you do this?
He's going to be doing a lot of chopping, folks. Unfortunately,
yeah.
I didn't know who he was, right? And the minute someone told me, and I believe it was Kei Asante and everyone, we were having a conversation, they're like, hey, Boom, you do know that Hiroki Totoki, his role is the equivalent of Amy Hood. And I'm like, well, that's a money person. And they're bleeding money left, right, and center. Obviously, he's going to have to make some hard choices.
Yeah, and you know, again, I don't know what happens to the other two big ones, which is Concord and Fair Games, right? How much longer they're going to keep pouring money into that? Bungie has turned out to be quite a, you know, hit and miss, I guess. I want to say a bust. They could still make some money off of them, but man, it's not been turning out the way they wanted. I don't know. So, and I don't want to pile on Sony at this point. We now have EA to talk about as well.
Yeah, of course.
But unfortunately, as an industry, Sony is one of the bellwethers, and yikes, right? It's just yikes. But this is kind of where we are, and you know, like, where are all the articles saying Sony should put their freaking games on Xbox and Switch, right? If Xbox is going to do it, why shouldn't PlayStation be doing it? At least there should be very obvious articles about PC day and date. At this point, like, come on, right? So we're saying it. I'm hearing PlayStation guys are now saying it, that
Right.
PC day and date should just happen at this point, right? And the next step is, okay, well, some of your games that don't hurt your brand, it didn't sell well. I don't think Days Gone is a big system seller. If it was, and you sold more than the amount you did,
Yep.
you should put that on other platforms, right? It didn't sell that well on PC either. Perhaps it's time to bring it to other platforms too. I mean, these are just things that they have to kind of go through, right? There's this whole idea of, no, we're locked down to where we are. I don't think that's going to be good for PlayStation. They need to kind of rethink that themselves as well, just like Xbox did. And then as far as EA, it's a pretty big shift to shut down your Star Wars game, to then decide we're not going to do any more of the licensed IP and give up on that. I don't know if there's hits as far as contractual obligations there, but that's on them to figure out. But that is a pretty big hit. I don't know if that's going to be something that Disney has to work through as far as all these other companies doing this. Insomniac is not, they're not going to be able to continue this either, right? It's very, very expensive. That license is very, very expensive. Ubisoft has the other one coming out, the Outlaws or something like that, Star Wars Outlaws.
Yeah, Star Wars
like that,
Outlaws
right?
comes out later this year. Yeah.
So, I mean, the same question: is it going to do well enough? We don't know. And
I mean, a lot of people are excited for
in.
it, but we don't. I mean, again, it's just. I mean, I get. I don't know. It's concerning, and I know there's some people wondering. Someone asked here. Let me see if I could find who it was about the title of this. First of all, the show is the show. We are talking about the Xbox Pandora's box being open, going third party with the 4 games.
And that's the next topic, right? Well,
that's the next topic. We're talking about the layoffs, because obviously that's an important conversation. So trust me, if you're here to listen to the opinions, we're going to get to it. It is important.
So I mean, the quarter, like this quarter ends March, right? And a lot of annual, the year ends for a lot of companies are usually March. Some of them are going to go further to June. So I would expect to see more of this going into March, and then maybe a bit more going into April, May, and June, which is sad, but it is what it is, right? So, after taking stock of what happens in the fall, which is usually the big season, once you get those numbers and it doesn't work out, that's when you start to change directions. So you're gonna see this, right? So.
Sony's going to change directions. Everyone's starting to change directions.
Have we heard from Ubisoft yet?
No, we have not.
Okay, expect that one.
Yeah,
because there's going to be some layoffs.
We have not heard from Ubisoft as of yet, which is very concerning. And that company is big. That company has a lot.
And I don't think was it Avatar? Was it Pandora or something? What was the game? The Avatar game?
Didn't do that well.
Avatar for Pandora Frontier, Avatar Frontier, it was something like that. Frontiers of that, whatever it was. That I don't think did well. We know that Prince of Persia did not do well. So those were their 2 big marquee games, along with AC Mirage, right? So I mean, good luck. It's going to be something happening there too.
We're going to be covering it here, and most people are going to be covering it as it should be covered. This should not be put away. And please,
I also wonder why Take-Two is so adamant with freaking GTA 6, saying we're not going to put that everywhere. Why does it only have to be on PlayStation and Xbox? Spare me the baloney that it can't be done on all platforms at the same time.
Oh, they know they can
sell the most.
They know they can sell it twice. That's why.
Yeah, that's what they're gonna do.
Yeah, but whatever.
They have like an insane attach rate, and they know that a bunch of PC gamers are going to pick up consoles just to play that game, and then they're going to bounce right back to PC and pick up the better version of the PC a year later. That's what happened last time, and it's a model that works for them.
But anyhow.
Yeah,
but that game is probably going to be $100, right? They don't care.
There's no doubt about it. Again, it's probably going to be $100.
Ultimate edition will be $150. Collector's edition will be $400.
Yeah.
And you'll
Buy a
pay it.
console. Yeah. Buy a console. Argy, good stuff as always, brother. Listen, One Bad Mother, let's get you in here. EA announces nearly 700 people being laid off. 2 games canceled. The first-person Star Wars game that was announced last year. There was an unannounced, which I, of course, didn't know was in development, a offshoot Battlefield game. I'm hoping that wasn't, what was it? I was going to say Bad Batch, but that's Star Wars. Bad Company 3. Could you imagine if that's what it was? Because everyone's been clamoring for a Bad Company sequel, and whatever they were working on, they're not working on. And of course,
I like those Bad Companies. They were fun.
They were great. They were so much fun. The characters were awesome. And of course, this now third round of layoffs this week started with Supermassive. It finished. Obviously yesterday we had the 900 layoffs from Sony. And their multiple studios, multiple games there were canceled, including Twisted Metal, which is devastating because that would have made bank for them. And now this. What are your thoughts on the industry, man? This is very concerning.
Yeah, it is. And before I delve too much into that, I do have to acknowledge, like you were saying, Boom, the people behind it. Because a lot of times, when you talk about the I guess what's actually happening. Sometimes it can sound really callous, like you're overlooking it. But which, somebody who's actually lived through a couple crashes myself, I've been affected. I was part of the mortgage industry crash back in 2007. That was a real bloodbath. I remember I was freshly in that industry when they were hiring like everybody, and that was 300 people. And one of my hiring classes, like less than 10% of us were left like a year later. I went right into banking where I drove that industry to crash. So like in 2008, and the human element, I have empathy for it because I've lived through it. I spent 7 months trying to figure out how I'm going to start a new career and figure out how I'm going to feed the kids and stuff like that. So hopefully, a lot of these people that are part of the industry, there's a lot of talent in there. And a lot of the people that are in the gaming industry are not in the gaming industry because they need to be in the gaming industry. They're in the gaming industry because they love they love gaming. A lot of them could actually get paid a lot more money or get paid more money for the skill sets that they bring. And I'm sure there's probably other parts of the tech industry that will be poaching them, looking for them. So, I want to just wish them all well before we kind of jump into, the industry itself. But at the end of the day, though, this is just part of the capitalism thing. And we even talked about it. I feel like we talked about this a few years back when things were like booming. And, I did say back then even that usually what happens is like whenever you have these industries that go through this really, really fast growth, there is going to be a period of time where the growth stops. When it stops, there's usually some period of consolidation. There's a correction. And I think that's what we're seeing today. It's been unique though with a lot of the companies that you're seeing it from. I know it's not just limited to AAA, but we're seeing it in the AAA space more than a lot of other places. I don't know if we've been seeing the same sort of impact in the mobile gaming side of things. It's a lot of this is really focused around a segment of the industry that has stopped growing where it's been. And so a few weeks back, everybody kind of bagged on Microsoft. This week it's bagging on Sony, and then a day later it's EA. I think it's one of those things where you got to step back and go, it's not just one of these companies. It's not just something that they could have done different. Like even looking at some of the Sony layoffs, we talked about some of the struggles that they've been having. If you look at Insomniac, we just talked about them. They've been superstars, right? Like they did basically every damn thing right that you could do in terms of being able to merge an IP with a game that plays really well with a top, benchmark production values, and turning these games in a time frame through the pandemic and everything that really nobody else in AAA has been able to keep up with, and they're impacted. And at the end of the day, they're impacted because it's capitalism. And these companies have realized there's not growth. It's the same pie that we're cutting over and over again. And the problem with it right now is that all these AAA companies, the console platforms, the mega publishers, they're kind of finding themselves in a spot where over the last few years, it's been really, really difficult to like launch new IPs to diversify their portfolio. So because if you launch those, you miss, it can cost you big time. So they've been playing it safe, but the challenge there is that over time you lose some of that excitement around that stuff. So even if a game comes out and it's really good, it's more and more difficult to wow people. So God of War Ragnarok and Spider-Man were both really highly acclaimed games, but at the end of the day, you double the budget of Spider-Man and you don't get double the wow factor, right? It's just diminishing returns, and the base you're selling to hasn't grown. And that's the kind of the challenge. And I think it is interesting because it does tie into some of the other stuff that we've been really arguing over the last few weeks, even some of the other topics we're going to talk about today. I think a lot of this does tie into that because the industry has sort of reached its limit with the way that it's been, and this is not it's not a thing to be scared about. It's what happens. This is not the only time or place that this has ever happened. And what happens is that it's going to go through a correction, and then they're going to have to figure out how to innovate. They're going to have to figure out how to change things up to start growing again, and they will. I think when we kind of get into that, I think there is things on the horizon that will create that opportunity. But I think we need to start looking at this industry different. It's not 2008 anymore. It's not the days of you wow somebody with an exclusive and then you sell a bunch more consoles, and now you're making $200 a year from those customers you sold those consoles for, towards like that. Those days really are behind us. Like now the customers are still buying the same consoles. Basically the PS5 customers were the PS4 consumers that just upgraded, and same thing on the Xbox side. So there's only so many. If you're not growing the pie and the costs are going up, and the industry, walls have kind of come down a little bit. You see that now AA studios are coming in here and taking some of the airspace. You saw that this year. You got Hell World and Helldivers and what is it, Balatro or whatever that is. Some of these things are just coming out of nowhere now. And it's not always the big high production value game that's capturing everybody's attention. It's Minecraft's still consuming a lot of mind share and time and things like that. So yeah, I think that this is just going to be a correction. I think it hopefully it helps a lot of the consumer bases realize that that's why some of the companies are going to do some different things, and I think that they're going to have to do different things for the health of the industry. I think the one other thing I would address on that, though, because I have seen some of our friends on Twitter and some that are popular amongst the San Francisco media and stuff like that come out and say this is the result of the consolidation, right? Microsoft.
I don't know if that's what it is, dude. I just don't.
I don't I think we definitely need it. It's not. It's almost the reverse. And again, not to give people economics, because if I start talking about that stuff, I'm sure all your users will start leaving the show and come back later. But the thing is with that is when industries mature, they actually do consolidate. When they hit their limits, when there's really no new juice to squeeze out of it with the old models, that's what happens. And we saw that with ZeniMax. As they were struggling to adjust in the industry where it was trending. The games they were good at, they couldn't grow anymore making those games, and when they tried to pivot, they failed, and that's why they had to sell. ABK, you heard when the ABK trials were going on, and even as they had, they had some record quarters coming out, and they were asking Bobby Kotick why are you still fighting to sell? You guys could just take those billions and just say, hey, thanks Microsoft for the billions and go make your money. And he basically said, no, they needed some of the tools and the AI and the things that Microsoft provides in order for them to move forward, because they hit their limit, right? These companies, and a lot of the companies are you're going to see them. A lot of these companies are going to have to either cut costs, or they're going to have to reinvent themselves. There's only two different ways to go, because that's how capitalism works. You got to figure out how to make more profit. So either they're going to cut all the fat, see if they can do more with less, or they will have to think about innovation. Or the last step is, we're going to have to merge with somebody so we can do things that we can't do by ourselves, or we're going to have to sell to somebody so we can do things that we can't, so maybe the synergies, and I'm using business words, like between us and them, are going to make more sense than if we just existed by ourselves. And that's exactly what happened. So some of the knuckleheads, and they're, some of them even used to have their own shows on cable TV, who are basically blaming Microsoft for Sony's layoffs indirectly. That's not how, you're reading between the lines. It's
just ridiculous to even.
You just have to blame Xbox for everything, right?
Yes.
So I'll add this, OBM. I'd put up a video several years ago saying, "Is graphic fidelity killing video games?" And I think it is. And it's that ever pervasive thing of making it more and more graphically awesome that just makes it more and more. So I think that's a lot more of what this is than freaking Microsoft consolidating. Sony consolidating.
I think it's a good. So there's actually an interesting discussion there, because I don't know that it necessarily has killed anything. The model used to work, like the game. Remember, the whole reason why exclusives were so renowned or so important to platforms is they usually were the benchmark games, right? Like for all of us graybeards, or the longtime gamers, single player gamers, it was the first party games that defined the platform. It was Halo showed you what the original Xbox could do. Halo 2 showed you what Xbox Live could do. Gears of War showed you what kind of graphical fidelity was possible with the 360, and these were all benchmarks. And then you look at last generation, it was Horizon Zero Dawn coming out, at an E3 and showing you what the PS4 was capable of, and then God of War and Spider-Man. And so it was always those games that were trying to show everybody, this is what these consoles are capable of. This is why you need to come here, because if you just rely on third-party games or every other game, you're going to be missing a big chunk of what is possible in the gaming industry. And I think what's happened, though, is that we've hit this point of diminishing returns. It's like I said, Spider-Man 2 for $300 million does not. You compare it to games from last generation that were probably 100 million, you're not getting that jump in wow factor, right? And I think that now it's getting to the point where your exclusives are just turning into, they're just games. And I'm not saying that in a way to be demeaning. It's but if you look across the industry,
there's also a lot of games.
That's the thing. It's overwhelming.
To your point, and phenomenal stuff as always, OBM. If you just look at what happened last year, I mean, in the chat, throw a number up there. How many games did you not get to last year? Because my list is redonkulous.
Yeah, no, it's crazy. I need them. I actually need them to go just maybe 2 years without releasing anything, so I can get caught up on just the things that I can't wait to play. And that's what I do. I look at my backlog. I'm like, man, I want to play all 5 of these games. I'm like, man, I'm just going to play Halo while I think about it, because I get overwhelmed by the choices sometimes. Or I start one thing here and I get it 10, 20 hours in there. But that's a me problem. I know some of you do better with that than I do.
Dude, I have put in the last 4 days 15 hours plus into Halo Infinite. I cannot stop playing it. I've done all the battle passes. It's just
your other problem.
Yeah.
Well, and that's Matt Piscatella talked about that, right? I like the term he used. He called them black hole games, right? The games that just don't die. You just play them for hundreds, thousands of hours over a generation. They don't die. Fortnite will continue to eat. Will just continue to eat tons and tons of hours and take time and focus and attention and mind share away from everything else. You got these 10 games that are constantly up in the, that are up in the zeitgeist, that are rotating up there, and really even less than that, that are really kind of, pulling all these pulling all these gamers, and that's the thing. Like the Zoomers today, they don't even look at our list wars. They don't talk about. I hate to say it, like they don't talk about Starfield and God of War. They talk about the next thing that's coming out in Fortnite, or they're building something in Minecraft.
Well, all they gotta do is drop a skin, right? Look how crazy people went for the Ninja Turtles, and there are people trying to finish the battle pass to get Shredder, to get Krang.
And so and those, and we don't think about those as like competing sales, but they are.
They
right?
absolutely are. Yeah.
Every time they drop something new in there that galvanizes all the the Fortnite gamers to go there, that takes away from time or money or things that we would talk about with these other games. So it's a different industry, and I think that's the challenge now that Sony's seeing. Microsoft, Phil's been saying it for years, and I know people, like, if you repeat it, sometimes they'll tell you that you're just kind of eating the corporate talking points. I'll just say that nicely, but it's the reality, right? It is. We've seen it now. We saw the numbers leak from the ABK trials. We saw stuff leak from in the Insomniac leaks, and we see that the average amount of like monthly active users on these consoles is not really changing very drastically. No matter how many or how few sales are, they're very, very similar, and it's digital, so people are stuck there. And the new gamers, like usually what would happen is, like, as you'd always have the new gamers, right? The new people to try to win over with your exclusives and with your platform. The new gamers don't care, man. That they'll take their Fortnite skins wherever the hell it's convenient. And if in a couple years there's like a handheld device that's more convenient to play Fortnite on, they'll go take all their skins from the PlayStation and start buying them over there. They don't they're just wired differently. And so I think what Sony's now seeing and why they are pivoting, and it's the same reason why I think we have the controversy with Xbox, is that they're seeing that they're not having the impact they used to. And, the data has been saying that for a while. People haven't really believed it. But I feel like the leaks coming out kind of prove that is the case.
Yep.
And if you're not getting the strategic impact of selling more consoles with the Spider-Man 2, they sold consoles. There was a boost in console sales, but you're probably selling them to the Spider-Man 1 customers that are now upgrading, right? So you're not getting brand new people into your ecosystem that have never been there, that are now spending lots and lots of money on controllers and things like that. So if you're not doing that with these types of games, now you got to start thinking about, well, either we got to cut back. We can't keep making them this expensive, or we got to figure out other ways to monetize them, which could mean porting them, or making a multi-platform.
Again, we're gonna get into that, because look, the porting thing, I'm not going to repeat myself. My stance has been known, how I feel about certain things, but everyone is going to have to figure out a way to make more money on older games that they have, and Sony is not blind to that. Hiroki Totoki is going to be making. Look, folks, if you think that I'm lying, because I do want to bring I do want to bring Kay Asante in here, then we're going to get into the Microsoft topic, which of course is going to be led by OBM, because he has a lot to say on it. If you look at the press release from yesterday's announcement of the 900 people that were laid off from Sony across the world, right? Not just one particular aspect. Many studios were affected. In his email or his press release, he said delivering the immersive, narrative-driven stories that PlayStation Studios is known for at the quality bar we aspire to requires, folks, a re-evaluation on how we operate. If you get anything from the press release, which I will add to the show notes if you want to read it for yourself, that statement, that small paragraph, should give you everything that you need to know about Sony first party moving forward. I'm not saying their games are going to look like they're going to look different. They're going to be terrible. It's going to run terrible. They can no longer afford $300+ million for a game. And if you think I'm crazy, Spider-Man 2018, which is phenomenal, cost $90 million to make that game. Spider-Man 2 cost $315 million to make. That wasn't including the advertisement that went on the back end of that. And according to the leaks, which we know is not happening now, Spider-Man 3 was going to be $400+ million. You know that's not happening. The game is going to happen, but it's not going to be $400 million. But OBM, listen, we'll come back to you, brother. I just want to bring Kay Asante, and I just want to catch up on these super chats, Kay, if you don't mind, because there's been quite a few of them. We have a couple here from RC Polygons. He drops not one, folks, but two $10 super chats and says, the first one, he says, did you hear that Call of Duty Warzone Mobile has been officially announced? Yes, for global release, depending on the parity contract with Sony. We could see some Xbox Game Pass perks for the mobile game. I wouldn't doubt that. And if you did know, we're going to go into that tomorrow, me and C Money on the X Vlog Live at noon. I think that Call of Duty Warzone Mobile is why we are definitely getting Call of Duty into Xbox Game Pass. That is going to be, it's going to print money. They have already 50 million pre-registered users. That game comes out in the spring. I believe it's the end of March, if I'm not mistaken, March 27th, if I'm not mistaken. And it is going to print money. And it's going to be a big deal. And I think it's that, I'm not saying it's that one game, but it's certainly going to definitely, in my opinion, I could be wrong, but we'll see this fall, that Call of Duty Black Ops Gulf War is in Game Pass. And it's because they're going to be making money off of this, but we'll get into that tomorrow. Rich Maharg drops a very generous $5 super chat and says, if we have to give a few games to other consoles to support the value of Game Pass, then so be it. As long as we keep our identity. I super chat too much, brother. Thank you for the outstanding generosity. RC Polygon's second $10 super chat. He says this: do you all think Xbox should pick up Epic Games to get Fortnite to gain the next generation of gamers, since the casual people are really only into Fortnite and others? If Epic wants to sell off, I don't think Epic would ever sell off, and I don't know if Microsoft could pull that off. That might be considered a horizontal,
that would be
a vertical. I think it would be crazy difficult to get that done. But I think that they should work with them. They certainly should partner with Fortnite and get more Fortnite, Xbox-centric things. They've had Master Chief. They've had a few other characters. They need to really get into partnering with Fortnite to get people equated with the Xbox brand. And maybe that is bringing in a Joanna Darkskin. Maybe that means bringing in a South of Midnight when that character, or how about this? About bringing Chai from Hi-Fi Rush into Fortnite. That would be kind of dope. But it's a good point. Andre Doyle drops a very generous $5 super chat, and he says, Microsoft is the future. Sony is not. Money wins. Xbox, PC hybrid, and mobile with cloud is the future of gaming. Yeah, their next consoles are going to be something special because obviously Sarah Bond told us so. But yeah, Asante, before we get into the Xbox topic about the Pandora's box being opened and whether or not the fractured community could be repaired and what that looks like for the future of Xbox with some of the decisions they're making, let's talk about the layoffs, man. Big news. It continues to be one day after another. Again, I mean, obviously you had Supermassive Games. They lost 30% of their staff. 900 yesterday for Sony, almost 700 from EA. I'm afraid to turn on my phone tomorrow, to be honest with you, because I think we're going to get more. What are your thoughts?
No, I think it's a sad state we find ourselves in, and of course, Hargeet and OBM put it down absolutely perfectly. I wouldn't be able to say anything more. I think that this is a correction in some ways some of the changes that some of the places that they thought they could go, some experimentation, and obviously as budgets balloon and they get more brazen in their idea of AAA games, so must the budgets balloon to adapt to it. And clearly, it's just not something that can be sustainable. OBM, you were saying something like back in the day they used to be very specific and focused on these AAA system movers, if you will, because those system movers were what defined the platform. And I say I agree with you. And I say the reason why it used to be successful then is because those platforms were different from each other, and each of them had to come up with juice to make each of them shine. Now they're all the same box, and it's all just a crapshoot. They're just basically lying to everybody. It's the same box, just one has green accents, the other one has blue accents, and they're fighting for your attention. But at the heart of it, it's exactly the same box. Came from the same manufacturing factories and everything. Right. You know what I mean? Like it's not what it used to be. And for a long time, us graybeards have wanted it to be that way because that's how we grew up, right? And obviously, capitalism being what capitalism is, you give us what we want, we give you our money. But it's no longer something that can continue. It cannot continue, right? And unfortunately, we're seeing the manifesting of that, right? I found it super, super telling the part of the article that Herman Hulse, the statement that he made that said that moving to become a sustainable, normal business, they need different resources. Like, that to me said they put their stake in the ground and they were about to change a lot of the people there to new resources that potentially would be geared for future business. I hope that's not all gas games. That I thought was very, very stark to see. And even places like Insomniac, who you'd think would be beyond reproach, they've literally made the PS5 gen. Even they were not above being touched. You know what I mean? So that was super surprising to me. The only other thing that I'll say that I thought was that really does say something is they announced the possibility of the potential of bringing PSVR 2 to PC, and then they fire their number one VR studio. They closed the whole thing down.
The London
that tells you something else. You know what I mean?
You know what it tells me. And we actually had this conversation this morning because if you don't know, if there's anyone that knows who is a connoisseur of VR, it's Mr. K. Asante. He has almost every headset. Except for the PlayStation VR 2.0, because there was no reason to get it. Now there is, because it's going to be able to use on PC. The question that I had asked you is, will Sony continue making this, considering they're in fiscal trouble? And you said that would really depend.
It depends.
Please elaborate on that.
So basically, the reason.
1 second, I think they have so much inventory built up that didn't get sold.
They need to get rid of it.
This is why they're doing it, because they just want to sell what they have.
Yeah, no worries, no reason. I 100% agree with you. 100. That is the reason. What they're doing right now is what my old company did, and my old company. People don't know I used to work for Hewlett Packard. They literally just parked their tablets. They did a fire sale. Remember, at some point they tried to compete with the iPhone, the iPad, and then they made a bunch of these tablets. And then overnight, they went from $300 to $99, and they sold like fire sale. Yeah, that was them getting out of the game. That's what this is. Remember, those who remember me saying on this air, who've been on this show, who've listened to this show enough, have heard me say this, right? We heard, Jim Ryan's getting removed or he's retiring and this and that. I'm like, hey, let's pay attention. The minute we get that connect is optional moment, we know some things are changing. Guess what?
Yep.
PSVR 2 coming to PC, that's the connect is optional moment. They are pivoting hard. That's what that is, right? Now, as a VR guy, right, all you got to do is tell me, okay, the thing that we're going to do to make this work for you is we're going to make it PC compatible, so much so that it's Steam VR compatible, meaning you plug it in and it's Steam VR compatible whole cloth, and I'm happy for it. Now, why I say it depends on whether they'll keep going with it or not is the moment you make a PC VR headset specific to PlayStation 5 and you move it to PC, then it changes from a proprietary walled garden accessory to a monitor, right? Because that's what literally VR headsets are: monitors, things that you plug in to use to consume media, just like your TV, just like your monitor on your PC. A VR headset is just a monitor. And imagine Sony telling you this monitor or this TV can only watch Sony content. That's what they have been doing with PSVR 2. So if you turn it from a proprietary accessory to a monitor, maybe a lot of people might like that monitor and want to buy more of it. Who knows? We'll see how that goes. But of course, we all know that the VR market itself is very minuscule. That's why they're getting out of it in the first place. So as Hargeet is saying, they may just kill their inventory because they probably had a bunch of inventory sitting somewhere in a warehouse, and then we may never see or hear from them again. I will buy one gladly and be happy about it. But needless to say, I will say I don't expect that this will end. I don't expect that because a lot of transition is happening now. And the final piece of this puzzle that makes me kind of sad but also hopeful is this solidifies the indie space as the place of innovation. No place else will you find that because everyone else is kind of too scared to go out on the limb. So it'll be up to the indies to go out on that limb for you. So if you're a gamer and you enjoy interesting experiences, that's probably where you'll want to keep an eye out, right?
You know, it's a good point to that. A good comparison to your point, Kay, is Prince of Persia.
Yeah.
Prince of Persia is an absolutely astounding game.
I loved it.
That nobody bought.
Yep. Best game Ubisoft has made since Splinter Cell, in my opinion.
And to be fair, nobody bought it because Ubisoft priced themselves out of it.
Oh yeah, it was
right?
ridiculous.
Like, they purposely priced themselves. Yeah. They should have. Yeah. And but I will say I did get the Ubisoft Plus for a month so that I could then maybe play Avatar, which everybody says sucks. I haven't killed the subscription just yet. I haven't killed my subscription. They have at least 2 months on me right now. So maybe that was probably part of their plan.
And if you haven't played Mirage, you know, it's in there.
It is unfortunate that not enough people played Prince of Persia because it is a masterpiece. And yeah, that's the world we live in right now. Those single player, enjoy them experiences seem to be going the way of the dodo bird in favor of Fortnite, where you can just be in there forever. And, you know, if we graybeards don't like that, it's time to start, you know, it's time to start voting with your dollars, as they say. You know, it sucks, but that's just the way it is. We see it in all these industries, right? They're gearing up for a different world order, a new world order where my kids are the ones you focus on, and you don't want to focus on them. They have no sense of ownership. You know, they play on freaking tablets and stuff. They could care less where they play as long as the game is entertaining. You know, it is what it is. You know,
yeah, it's
which ultimately might be the right thing for the industry, right? Because maybe just our way is whatever, right? So long term, that's probably the best thing. It's like, I don't care where the game is, I just want to play.
Stop it, Hargeet. Your logic is just not good. We don't appreciate your logic.
You know what?
Too logical.
That's a phenomenal point. I want to segue into the next topic. Now, obviously, the last couple of weeks for Xbox and its fans have been brutal, to be quite honest with you. There's been a lot of infighting. A lot of people that I first of all, let me just say this. I don't look up to anyone but my pops. He's not around, and that's why he's, you know, that's my hero right there. I don't look up to any other man. Sorry, I just don't. But there are people that I gravitate to in this community because of the persona that they put out there. And obviously if it's toxic, we don't go nowhere near it because that's not the kind of brand that we are. We like engaging and welcoming and inclusive community members. Unfortunately, the Pandora's box that you see as the thumbnail was opened when it was confirmed that Xbox was putting 4 games onto PlayStation. And and obviously the Pandora's box is, well, what's next? Because there's going to be something else. And it has fractured the community. And Phil Spencer, whether he has publicly admitted or not, he sees it. He understands, right? That he obviously he's in the socials, folks. He's reading. But talking with one bad mother in a DM really kind of changed not my solid ideology. I still think brand identity is king. I think that if you look at what Sony has done, they have built their brand on their strong IP. Nintendo has done the same, and Microsoft, and specifically Xbox, has done that. They've been in the gaming business over 20 years because of their iconic characters and their games. And some of those iconic characters need to stay put where they are. But OBM has a really interesting thought and a theory as to what Microsoft is doing. Now, granted, let's call a spade here. They are a $1 trillion company, and Kay Asante has said this because they don't leave any money on the table. But this industry is changing, and a perfect example of that is what has happened this week. And I know that the layoffs may not correlate one-to-one with what Xbox is doing, but it might, just a pinch, because Microsoft laid off 1,900 people. Did putting games onto other platforms potentially save that from being more? I don't know, because we don't have those numbers. No one has said anything about that. But One Bad Mother, you have a very interesting theory of why Xbox is specifically doing this, but they're also doing it first, which they do a lot of things, and of course they get the arrows for doing these out of the norm things that the industry is not used to.
Right. And first of all, I wanted to say I appreciate that, Boom. I didn't know that you were so impressed with the theories I had.
Great read, dude. Really, it really was.
And I do like to share my thoughts. I stay away from the console war stuff, and it's not because like I'm above. Here, let's be honest. Everybody here is we want what we want, and as consumers, we're always going to pull for what's going to work out best for us. And I do understand. So I'm going to like preposition all this stuff by saying that I understand why there is a lot of pushback, why there is a lot of concern, and I think we've talked a lot about that. We can come back on some of these points because I really still think that a lot of what we're doing is still thinking about this industry as the way it always existed. We just talked about a minute ago the exclusives and why Sony maybe isn't going to make benchmark games or not keep them to just a console anymore because of how the industry's changed. But as somebody I've stayed away from the console wars for a bit. Before I kind of get into my point, though, I do have to like kind of admit where I'm at, because I think it's only kind of fair. When somebody's coming up here and saying, "Well, this is what I think," it's like, well, what is it you really want? Like, and somebody that I've kind of been waiting for people to get over the initial shock of this thing. But for a while, I've been at the standpoint where I want PlayStation gamers to keep subsidizing Game Pass, Play Anywhere games with their virtuous, full price, restricted use purchases. Like in any other consumer analysis, like we're looking at any other products, the thing that we always look at is like, what is the value in the experiences that we're getting for money, right? And with like thousands of games where we're at these days, with the overwhelming choice you have on either platform, we're getting to that point, like we just were discussing, that you're splitting hairs now in content, where we all have like these massive backlogs, right? That we don't even know where to start. And it's not just massive backlogs of fodder or filler. It is like top of the, I can't even get to all of the top of the industry games and all these genres that have come out over the last few years. But what it does make it less painful in making decisions when you have to like look at all these different choices of what to download. It is having that subscription where it doesn't cost me anything to take a risk. And so like I'm hearing a lot of people like taking victory laps or basically like casting out the Xbox because they're thinking, it's like, well, one group of consumers is now going to have to wait to pay more to have less options with the same games, and suddenly like somehow that's become like a victory. And whereas Xbox gamers are getting the first and a lot of third-party games day one in Game Pass, and most of them are going to be Play Anywhere. Like they already are pushing that way with anything that hits Game Pass, meaning that you can buy a ROG Ally and take those games and trips with you. And if you buy a PC in a few years, you'll be able to pick up your saves and play it with better, graphics or frame rates, things like that. And I think with a lot of this upcoming next gen, I think you're going to see a lot more of this ecosystem innovation that they've been hinting at, when Sarah Bond was talking about the power. But I think like the best way to like try to illustrate what the what these platforms are, and then I'll talk a little bit about what I think Microsoft's strategy is here in a minute. But like think about it this way: you have two restaurants you can go into. Both of them have like gigantic, massive, like the biggest buffets in the world, right? Like two of the top 3 buffets in the entire world with thousands of meals to choose from. You sit down, you push a button, and they bring you out a meal. And there's so many good things in this menu that you can't even decide what to eat. And usually you run out of room to keep eating before you even touch the tip of the iceberg in the buffet. So what's the selling point of both buffets? Well, if the food is amazing in both restaurants, you got to think, well, what's going to differentiate them, right? Like, is it really going to be because one restaurant has, if the quality is very similar when you go to both, is it really going to be that one has 10% more options on the menu if you can't even fathom to like try everything as it is? At that point, if you're always having a great meal, you got all these different choices, what's going to separate one restaurant from another? And it's going to be a combination of things. For me, I'll say it's always been price. It's the atmosphere, it's the quality of the service. And, for me, like, I think we can all think of going somewhere, you eat something, it was decent, but you paid a whole heck of a lot. You're like, oh man, that wasn't really worth it, right? For what I paid for. But when somebody else is treating you out, it all tastes good. and I think that's kind of like where
are you saying if it's free, it's for me? Is that what you're saying?
kind of. Yeah. And you know what? If Sony, if
$3.99, baby, go ahead.
If Sony, if the virtuous, like if people want to play on the winning box and they want to pay full price so that I can have, so basically they're actually partially paying for my meal for the same thing that actually is going to have more options, right? Like I said, I can take this elsewhere. And then I struggled to think of the downside as somebody that's already committed to the ecosystem, as somebody who's already been invested in it, that spent, already years. I've been in the ecosystem since I played Halo CE 3 weeks after the original Xbox launch on a kiosk, and I've been here since. So I'm not going anywhere, and I'm not giving up my Game Pass subscription. I got too many backlog games on there that I've half started already, and so that's not changing. So again, you start to think about, we just spent all this time talking about the industry and the struggles of making these games profitable and what games do we even get greenlit. The thing that people never really often don't see or think about is the stuff that got canceled. It makes a quick news thing, right? But like, we now know that the Star Wars games from EA got canceled, but most of a lot of these things just get canceled behind the scenes. You never know about them.
You never hear about them. Yep.
You'll never hear Hi-Fi Rush 2 in the boardroom trying to make the business case. Well, why should we be able to allow to make this game when Hi-Fi Rush didn't really move a lot of Game Pass subs? And so like, you don't hear those conversations. So anything that is going to fuel that sort of model, that flywheel, and we know that Steam has, like, if they weren't day one in Steam and basically kicking butt with Steam sales the way they have been the last few years, they probably would not have bought ZeniMax. Like a lot of what they did with ZeniMax would not have made financial sense. And that probably leads them to not being able to buy ABK or even a lot of the other games that they're just kind of throwing up against the wall, because they saw what happened with Sea of Thieves. I believe Steam, Game Pass and then Steam kind of saved that, right? It was like that whole thing. They built the mind share with Game Pass. They got the full price sales. And it's sort of like Steam was subsidizing Game Pass. The Steam customers, all those people on Steam that have been paying full price for those games, have been subsidizing and making Game Pass viable. Like we always talk about, is this going to be, viable long term? Is this something that's going to be able to continue to exist? And I think the reason why it does is because they get the best of both worlds. They get their cake and eat it too. We can build this subscription We can build this thing that's going to live beyond the console. When we get beyond plastic walls and you're now playing games everywhere, and we're closer than people think. When everything is an app sitting next to each other on your TV, on your mobile devices or whatever, whether that's local or streaming, because it's going to be both. When everybody is like that and all the games are just going to be available everywhere, we know that something like a subscription is a nice complement to somebody who loves to play on PlayStation. It's a nice complement to somebody who loves to play on Steam, right? It feels that like it can be a nice complementary thing. But the nice thing about it for Microsoft is that the money they make from the Game Pass Ultimate user is actually the same amount of money they make yearly from your regular, Xbox is my home console gamer. But they're just doing it in a different way. So like I think a lot of what we're seeing right now, and I don't know if I'm using the right terminology here, but Microsoft kind of sort of setting the tone here with some of these ports. I think a lot of it's not just about the money, right? Like I do think that is some of it is there because I think Phil and the team are trying to set up these studios like a Double Fine, like a Tango, that they're not going to become Call of Duty support studios when Phil and team are replaced by somebody from the Borg later on, right? Like I think he's trying to build something that can be sustainable for these studios to keep taking chances and keep putting like experimental appetizers in that low cost portion of the buffet, right? Like so, like I think that's part of the equation. The other thing is I really believe that right now. This is another step in what they've been doing for years, whether it was like Phil getting up on stage with, the leaders of Sony and Nintendo at one of the Keyleys or whatever.
At the Game Awards, yeah.
This Kumbaya thing is not really about people. I get in arguments with a lot of my friends in the community. They're like, Phil's just too nice. They need somebody more cutthroat. They said this is completely self-serving. When you're not the market leader or when somebody else is dominating you, which Steam is dominating them in PC and Sony is dominating them in console, it doesn't really the console wars don't do you any good to sit there and be like, we're going to go, tit for tat with them, especially when you got the whole, the media behind all the market leaders, you got the regulators trying to protect them. Like what Microsoft, I think, is looking to do is just get people to lower their swords and start to think beyond the console war. Because beyond the console war is transferring that over is really that next paradigm is going to. They're setting themselves up to be in front there, because right now, like if you are getting everybody on Sony, the Sony enthusiasts to lower their sword, it's like, oh, I guess maybe I can buy an Xbox. I'm not going to buy an Xbox right now because it's $500. So the Game Pass value proposition doesn't really. In my mind, if I'm a Sony gamer, it doesn't really make sense yet. It's not, the numbers aren't there because I have to go invest $500 to get the same quality game that I'm getting with my PS5. So they're not going to do that. But what's happening, I believe, is you get them to lower their swords, you get the media to lower their swords, the regulators to kind of back off and go, oh, look at, they're playing nice. And what that allows them to do is continue to invest more, buy more, build up mind share. And right now it's all about building up mind share of your IPs, so that when everybody is just an app sitting next to each other, that suddenly you're now just a button click away. It's not $500. It is, oh, it's $1 to go try it. And you know what? It's $1 and I don't even have to buy an Xbox controller. I can use my DualSense because you can use it on streaming, right? And so that's, I think, what a lot of people aren't thinking of. I understand the concerns. I think a lot of Xbox gamers are concerned that if Microsoft continues to do this, it's going to lose value. And they've seen what's happened in the past. And in the past that those models worked, right? But now we're in the digital age. This is really an extension of 2013. Like the average Xbox gamer is still staying. If you didn't switch from Xbox to PlayStation when Crackdown was going up against God of War and Spider-Man, then why are you going to switch when you got like Indiana Jones going up against Spider-Man 2 and Ragnarok, right? Like, so people are really invested in their digital ecosystems these days and their friends list. They're not really moving, but I do think that they are positioning this so that when those walls do come down, they're now going to take the lead, because you have to think about where if you look at where all the industry trends are going today, they're going towards areas that are strengths for Microsoft, NVIDIA, Valve, and even Nintendo with the handheld thing. And they're going away from the strengths that Sony has, dominated in, which is the walled garden, having the most exclusives, having the most third-party exclusives. None of that stuff's going to matter in a few years when you can take your entire Xbox ecosystem somewhere else. And I'm saying this not as like an inside thing. Phil Spencer, when he did the interview with Jez Corden back in December, after he was trying to clean up from Tim Stewart's comments, he talked about, wouldn't it be nice if you could just take your entire, you could stream your ecosystem everywhere. And they've also talked a lot about the Play Anywhere, the dual entitlements, and expanding that, right? And we've seen that with the Japanese publishers. You saw that with Sega, who Persona and Yakuza weren't even on Xbox One for a long time. Now I bought Infinite Wealth, and it's a Play Anywhere game. You look at Square, who hasn't really been on and off with Xbox for years. Why would they support them now when their sales are the worst? Well, it's because there's something else happening, and they bought into this idea that supporting Xbox doesn't mean just supporting a console. It means supporting this Xbox Anywhere, which means that that making a game for Xbox means making a game for an app on a TV, which means making the game for an app on your computer or your laptop. That's what it means, and that's what it's going to mean in the future. And that's why there actually been increasing support, and why Sarah Bond, when she was saying that, like, we have more support now than we ever have, despite the sales that we all acknowledge are not great, those sales don't matter anymore. And so what matters to me, and just going back to what matters to me, I think Game Pass is the one thing that is, for me, as somebody who's grown up in the single player IPs, all the way back, I guess going back to Atari really, but really you're going to like Nintendo and Sega Genesis and Xbox and PlayStation, like all those things, those types of things that we've grown up on. I think that their best place in the future is not going to be $70 sales on a walled garden. Like, though trends are going away from that, the Zoomers will not pay $70 for a 20-hour experience, but they do have lots of subscriptions, and that's where I think Game Pass could potentially, and I'm just going to say potentially because we don't know if it will, but that's where it can potentially bridge that gap. And that's why when they came out, the only thing I cared about is, are you still committed to day one? Did you change anything there? And they said, not only are we committed to day one, we're going to bring Call of Duty day one, right? So like that told me they're all in on it. And that was the only thing that I care about, because to me, that flywheel, that Game Pass flywheel, is the only thing that really matters, because it's going to be the conductor and the conduit really for the entire ecosystem, whether it's the console or other things, or the handheld, or whether it's going to be an app on your TV or anything else. So that's kind of like where I'm at. And that's one of the reasons why, man. Yeah. So I'll let other people talk and disagree with me. I've been in the minority in a lot of conversations. Kay knows. Kay's been in some of those conversations. He lets me talk.
Yeah, no. Listen, you bring a listen.
The problem here is after OBM talks, I have nothing to say because I agree wholeheartedly with him, almost 100% on this.
Well,
so,
you know what? Let me bring you into the conversation, Hargeet. Now, okay, then we'll go right to Hargeet right after. I want to get your hot take on this, because obviously we've talked about this. Community has talked about this. There is this ideology that a Pandora's box for Xbox is open. It's for games. There's reasons for it. Now, is it corporate greed? Some people will say yes. I might even agree that it's yes, to some extent, because obviously when you spend $80 billion on a Activision Blizzard King, your investors are going to want that money back. So again, we're still keeping the conversation open to the fractured community. That's Phil and team are going to have to figure that out. I don't know how they fix that, to be honest with you, because they are putting games on other platforms. I think there is reasons for it. I think OBM's reasoning for it makes sense. I think from an Xbox fan point of view, like some people said in the chat, if some games, let's be clear, if some games have to go on other platforms to pay for other new games to be added to Game Pass, if that's the reasoning, then I'm not bad with it. I'm not going to sign off on the Gears of War on PlayStation. I'm just not going to do that. And I hope that never comes to fruition, because that is an Xbox brand identity that would damage the brand.
Blasphemy. Blasphemy,
Phil
damn it.
Spencer said they won't do it. They won't do things to damage the brand. That he said, those are his words.
Absolutely.
Where do you think this is all going at the end of the day? Obviously, Microsoft did it first, and Microsoft did a lot of things first that they've always gotten the arrows for. You've said that many times before. This is more arrows. But they're in it. They're in it now. 4 games are there. They're going to be launching very soon. We'll see how the media responds to it in regards to reviewing it. I have a feeling that they're all going to get good reviews because they're on PlayStation. That's obviously a talk for another show. But what are your thoughts on the subject matter at hand?
So you guys have heard me, and I let's not bury the lead. I 100% agree with OBM on this one. I think that they are the as the youngins say, they money long, and when your money is long, you can think ahead, right? You can think far, far, far ahead. While you and I think about our lifetimes, they can think of our children's lifetimes and see that during that time frame, all the things that we hold dear and sacred will be nothing.
Those damn Zoomers,
right?
Those damn Zoomers.
Zoomers, right? Like I've said this, and people have heard me talk about this if they've been hanging out in our spaces and things. We are the last generation that is annoying enough to have this sense of ownership. We are the last generation that doesn't read the EULA but thinks we own everything. You know what I'm saying? And because there's so many of us, the regulatory bodies have no choice but to kowtow to our ridiculousness, because nobody's reading that EULA that tells you you're not owning anything. Right? Our children will also not read the EULA, but they will not be mistaken in thinking they own everything. They'll just do whatever those corporations say, and that because they've been doing it since birth. Right? We are the last gen that expect to have things and keep them and own them and game preservation and all that crap that seems to hold, quote unquote, and you don't see me doing my fake air quotes here, innovation back, right? It is what it is. So I do think that as another graybeard said, hold on to your butts. This is not the end of it. You know what I'm saying? It is really.
I'm getting old.
It's heading. We're getting old. It's heading in that direction. But I honestly think that when it's all said and done, those of us who love games will still have no issues. We like how the dust will settle. You will still find yourself in a paradigm where everything you want to play, you will get access to, be able to play. There will be some things that fall through the cracks by and large, but I think we'll be just fine. Now, Boom, I know we were talking about this before, and I already primed the pump on you to tell you what I was going to say in this section, which I will say now, which is if there is any kind of smoke that I want to give, right? And OBM, I need you to push back on me hard on this one. I need you to
look. Big
pause.
Yes.
I could see you whining. You were about to run into all that.
You see what I'm saying? That's right. See, if there's any smoke to be given, it's the idea that Sony, since time immemorial, have always been very forthcoming to a certain extent with their consumer. You know exactly what to expect from them, right? Yep. A, you buy my box, you play my games, right? B, whenever I get a chance to, I use you like a pay pig. You enjoy the bangers, you keep focused, you keep coming back. That's literally the business model,
simple
right?
Messaging,
that is
right? Yeah.
Simple messaging, right? Same business model as Nintendo, right? Pay pigs, I will send you an abacus, you will love it, and you'll keep buying it for way more than it's worth.
Well, that's you see that in politics too, right? Like
absolutely
the simple message that the dumbest
keep it
people,
simple, stupid method.
Yeah, yes. That's those are the ones that catch on. They don't even have to make any sense. It's just
and it trains the consumer rather well because it's very simple and easy to follow, right? If I have any smoke, it's the idea that for a long time, right, those proponents of those simple messages have been kind of taking shots at Xbox, and every time they do, Xbox and by and large Phil Spencer pushes back on that, right? And those of us that are a part of that brand who like that brand then get galvanized to push back on that. Oh, the metric of success is not the dollars and cents. Oh, Hi-Fi Rush's metric of success wasn't the dollars and cents. It was the engagement. Oh, this thing is profitable by and large, which all of it is true, and that's the case. Mm-hmm. But then out of nowhere, you turn on a dime and go, well, if more people don't play this game, all of a sudden now our people are going to have to get fired. So maybe we're going to change the rules. Well, if people don't play these games, maybe there won't be a next one. So now it's going on a repeating console. You have lost the thread. If I have smoke, that's where my smoke lies. Well, all the others, as craven as they can be, they have been very dedicated and very clear from jump. You guys went from hugging and inoculating. Hey, don't bother Pentiment. Pentiment's cool, baby. He's good. He's fine. There's nothing wrong with Pentiment. Leave him alone. And now all of a sudden, Pentiment's for the streets because otherwise, Pentiment's going to be considered a failure, and maybe people are going to lose their job. Well, if that was the case from jump, maybe you should have calibrated your messaging from jump instead of the back and forth that our consumers are now having to deal with. When 5 minutes ago, the metrics of success wasn't the dollars and cents, and now all of a sudden it is.
So you see what I'm saying? So Kay, since you did call me out to push back,
please, yes,
I won't fully push back because I think you're absolutely right, and I feel like most people that are enthusiasts to the platform over the years will admit that really ever since Peter Moore left, the messaging has just kind of been all over the place. It just depends on the day of the week. There's double talk and almost everything that comes out. I do think, I will say though, just in light of their competition, I think one of the challenging things that they have is that they are a lot of segments. They are a lot of different, aspects of the gaming business. And I do think that, buying like something like an Activision Blizzard did transform them to be, they always knew they were going to be this company that they're basically becoming now. But I think they initially thought that was going to be down the road. And that's one of the reasons why, because Phil is even talking about like years back, like even on the Xbox One, he said, the exclusives really don't move the needle anymore, like towards the end of the generation. And then they came out and says, well, this is about exclusives for you. I think the reason for that double talk is they understood they needed to build a brand, but now it's like, okay, now we're going to move into the future faster.
Now we have so many IPs and so many monsters. Screw the brand.
That was supposed to be for these years that we're going to skip over those years. That was going to be
that was back when we came to the dance and nobody wanted to dance with us, so we brought the dancers with us. Now we are the talk of the town, baby. We don't need those anymore. We're out the door.
We got your exclusive Redfall.
Hold on a sec there.
Yeah, that's before we jumped over Windows, So I think that's going to be a constant thing. I don't think that's going away, by the way, because it's like now you have games that are bigger by themselves than Xbox. Like Call of Duty is bigger than Xbox consoles, right? And you have Minecraft, you have these monster things that by themselves are bigger. And we're also not even seeing the new stuff because Phil's been hinting at innovation. He's been hinting at the fact that they got to not rely on the old IPs. And I think that's like another conversation, but I do think that they are really aiming to build the next mega super giant zeitgeist IPs now that they have all these resources. They're not going to stop. Call of Duty isn't going to be the last. That's not their goal. They're going to try to build their own. And I think to do that, you got to think about it differently because now if the IP is going to be bigger than the Xbox, you're probably not going to restrict it to the Xbox, right? So that's the thing. And I will say you're absolutely right. But there is just some context to consider.
Yes, absolutely.
I don't think they can ever be like Sony or Nintendo because they don't have a little. They don't have.
They all of a sudden are no longer in Sony or Nintendo's lane. They're completely above it, and they have to change because of that. And of course, since he's not on this show, I will say this, and everybody will be quiet and not tell him. We can all agree that, unfortunately, in this instance, Everborn Saga was right. They should have bought Sega. Then it would have been. It would have been status quo had they bought Sega.
It's not over. It's not over. Okay, I still think Sega could get added to the low cost subsidized buffet.
Sure. Hey, there's always tomorrow's bit of drama.
If he listens to this tomorrow morning when we're talking, he's like, "Hey, Kay, did you say that I was right?"
No, no one said a damn thing. No one heard anything. Let's move on.
Don't forget what I said. Getting everybody to lower their swords includes the regulators too. So.
But you know what, OBM, you are absolutely right on the lowering of the swords thing. I heard people talking about some of the marketing managers from Xbox. Kind of wink, nudge, showing off PlayStations and this and that. And some people got so livid. And that was the first thing I thought, right? First thing I thought. Right now, here they are. They want their ultimate vision. How do you turn your competitor into a partner? You lay down arms. You start promoting their stuff. You start showing them that, hey, I'm no longer your enemy. Look, I'm pimping your wares, right? It really does look like that's what they're doing.
It's like the art of war thing, like when the in the old days, like where you'd assimilate with the enemy and then before you know it, it's the Red Wedding, right? Like
yes.
and the thing is,
absolutely,
if the future competition is over these big gigantic IPs, right? That's like where a lot of the it's going to be. Them going there and eating mind share. That's why I never understood any talk about pulling Call of Duty from there, because last thing you want to do is create a vacuum with 100 million plus gamers, right? You don't want to. Yeah. You want to suck up all that. You want to dominate. You want your IPs to dominate their IPs. So how do you do that? You go over there for now, and then eventually someday they might just be in your store again, anyways, when all those walls come down. So that's kind of back to my point. But yeah, keep going, Kate.
No. I'm just reading the chat and realizing I'm full of pause moments this evening. No more lowering of swords. Let's move on, shall we?
Hey, holy moly.
Yikes.
Holy matrimony. This became rated X. What happened? Don't cross the streams. Anyway. Yeah.
Well,
my.
I will say, for my part, to close this out, y'all heard me say it multiple times, and it is still true. We are the olds here, and the new comes with a new business model. But I just think, me personally, and I think Hargeet and OBM will agree, the subject matter experts in gaming at Microsoft, and we're talking your Phil Spencers, your Sarah Bond, your Peaches, Matt Booty, they have earned at least some leeway as far as, let's see what you can do, because for a while now they've been there with you, right? They've been protecting you. They've been galvanizing the community, building it up to where it is today, and now it looks like they are spearheading a huge change. And we're all looking at them with a side eye, but they've done enough in this space that we can kind of go, okay, let's see what you do first before I bring out the pitchforks. I want to see the ultimate vision. This conversation, I feel, is fruitful and will continue until, say, June, July, when they show us their E3 timeframe and they put more meat on the bones to that video.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Point. Yeah. That's a great.
And we definitely have to to build on that point. What people maybe don't think about is what it comes after this team. It could be the Borg. It could be the next time Matrick. That's why we say, that's why I want to see Phil, Sarah, and Booty land this plane.
No, I absolutely, and I think they're going to. I really do. Like I said, I know there's a lot of dysfunction. There's a lot of mistrust. There's a lot of confusion with the Xbox community. We're not used to seeing games. I mean, again, there are Microsoft games on PlayStation right now. There are PlayStation games on Xbox, MLB The Show being one of them. They were forced to do that. I think it's going to be more. I think this is going to be a very give and take kind of situation. Unfortunately, when you and I'm not making an excuse. I'm not capping for Xbox. You've heard my opinions. I still have strong feelings about exclusivity and the identity of the box, and that's never going to change. And it's probably because I'm the dinosaur in the room. It's perfectly fine. Hargeet, let's get your hot take on this, because obviously this is one of those pointed conversations where no matter how you come at it, you're going to be able to give a good point, and people are going to agree or disagree. But obviously, the Pandora's box has been opened. The model has changed. The last 3 days with the industry layoffs proves that the industry is in trouble. How much is in trouble? Well, Phil Spencer said in that interview with Stephen Totillo as much, right? He said that the industry is changing. The industry is not growing. The 200 million consoles continue to just be the 200 million consoles from one gen to another. It's the same group of people buying these things. They have to find new customers. Do I agree with it? No, I'm not, and I'm probably never going to agree with it. But if on the back end of it, if putting a particular game like a Sea of Thieves on a PlayStation and on a Nintendo Switch 2 somehow subsidizes games continuing adding to my service that I pay for, then I what am I going to say? I'm still winning. Now again, that's not for everything. Where do you actually think this is ultimately going?
So, look, I've been saying that 5 to 10 years from now, you should expect that they're going to shift third party. That's just my thoughts. I think that's where it's going to go. And a lot of what OBM is saying, that's what's going to happen. It doesn't like the industry is shifting, not because of us being console gamers don't want to play games. It's the industry is shifting because the gamers have shifted to something else.
Yep.
And because of that, you just have to adapt. That's just the way it is, right? They're placating us as much as they can. And they will continue to keep trying to keep, this enthusiast core gamer happy on this platform, right? But ultimately, they know their money is going to be somewhere else, right?
Yeah.
They didn't buy this thing to say, we're getting Call of Duty. They bought it to do to get Blizzard for PC and get King for mobile, right? That was the big focus. And they know that their growth pattern is going to be mobile, and it's going to be, I keep saying 70% of the revenue is on mobile. It's not on PC or on console. 70%. So 3/4 of the gamers are sitting somewhere else. They're not on this console, right? Take PC, then you have to split that across PlayStation, Xbox, Nintendo, and PC. They get 30%. And they're worried about that area. We're worried about that area. And they're sitting there going, why am I not making the money over here? That's why they wanted King, right? So
Yep.
This is just the world that's going to be. I totally expect that in 10 years, and I've been saying this, your TV will play the game natively, right? Whether it's an app that runs, whether it's like it takes part of the game and pulls it down and the rest of it's in the cloud, it doesn't matter.
Yep.
You're on mute, OBM.
You're still on mute,
You're
brother.
still on mute.
Still on mute, sir.
Who's muted at OBM? He muted himself.
Yeah,
Yes,
it's on you, bud. You need to unmute
I
yourself.
muted
There
him,
you
so-
go.
Sorry, I was being rude and cutting you off. No, I wanted to say that was in the leaks. Hybrid cloud. People are underestimating that you can do things that are impossible locally, but it's going to feel like a local experience.
Exactly. And so,
They've been trying to do that for a long time now.
Yep.
They've been trying to do that since
It's good if
Crackdown
it's
3.
available.
Yes.
Right. And then the fact that you need a
Finally
console
here.
or you're on Windows or you're on Linux or all that goes away. It's going to be your web TV or your Android TV. It's just going to run things.
Wow.
You don't have to worry about it anymore.
We're
right?
really
It's
harping
all
on
that-
Graybeards right now. Right? He said web TV. I had
that
one of those.
actually. Jesus
I
Christ.
just see the direction of the industry, right? I'm
So
just
old.
seeing what's going to happen, right? And
Indeed.
I'm like, I look at all the kids that are playing on iPads, right? And then if they want a new, like you see it, like some of them like the PlayStation or Xbox or Nintendo, but a lot of them want a PC. That's just the way it is. So if that's where they're going to be, you
PC
have to deal with that,
Yeah.
right? And if that's the direction, moving to PC day and date was a fantastic idea. You can see how this is not working for PlayStation, where they decide, we're going to have it, partial. We'll do, some games on PC a couple of years later. Yeah, Helldivers kind of disproved that theory.
Yep,
You basically are locked into this now. You have to, and Hiroki Tsutoki's coming in saying, I don't know what the hell this whole console war thing is. I don't care. My console keeps selling. I'm not making profit. What's the problem, right? He's going to look at Microsoft and say, that's working. Nintendo, that's working. Why am I not working? What's wrong, right? And he's going to copy their pattern. Now, it's hard to copy Nintendo's pattern. Why? Their games sell like hotcakes. They just do.
Yeah,
Okay, that's not easy to replicate.
They're a
Good luck.
conundrum.
Have fun trying to do that.
That's what Nintendo is.
Right?
They are an industry conundrum because
Yes.
they can have less powerful hardware. They make profit on every hardware that they sell because it's less powerful, right? And somehow or another, out of every platform, and I'm talking about every platform, their one-to-one console to title is unlike anybody's ever, and it's been like that. It is madness how many of their first party stuff is just really good, man.
Yep. So look, Nintendo is that pattern. It's they're not going to be able to replicate that, and so you push that aside and say, all right, well, the other major one is Xbox. Well, what have they been doing? Why is it their profits been higher than ours when they were in third place? They're not selling like what they're selling half the consoles. Well, what's going on here? Okay, well, their pattern is visible to you. It's open to you. In fact, I'm sure they're willing to talk to you because they they're in competition with everyone, right? Sony is a customer of Microsoft. That's just a fact. It is what it is, right? They have enterprise agreements with them. I'm sure they can talk to them. I'm sure they'd be willing to partner with them. They did with the cloud. You had Satya talking to the CEO of Sony. We're partnering on cloud gaming. They don't care. They will work with anybody, right? That's who they are. So they have that pattern. They're going to follow that pattern. And Hiroki Totoki is going to turn things and say, why isn't that working? I want to do that. So let's make that happen. There's going to be a lot of fast movement towards a different direction. Microsoft is always pushing the envelope, and Xbox has been kind of on the forefront. They lead from behind. It is what it is, right? But they push the industry, right? Most of the things they've done were correct. Their messaging has sucked.
Yes.
And it's unfortunate, but most of the things they did were usually ahead of their time. Some of them worked, some of them didn't. And it's mostly messaging. Ultimately, whatever they've done usually happens, right? So I don't see this being the end, right? So as far as the exclusivity thing, they're gonna have to play that game as far as what games need to stay exclusive, what games need to move over. But this is really them changing the industry, trying to put out there that, hey, if you guys aren't going to take the first step, we will, and we need to start seeing this blur a little bit, right? In certain games, it doesn't really make sense for Ratchet and Clank to continue to lose money. You killed the team because you don't think it's going to make enough, and take the team members that are left and put them on the Marvel, Spider-Man and whatever machine that they have now, right? So that's all they're going to be doing. Okay, but wasn't that a cool franchise? So I guess we won't be seeing that for at least a decade, if not ever. And you could have put that on other platforms and made more money, but you didn't, right? Sackboy, did that make a lot of money? I don't know. Returnal, did that make his money back? I don't know, right? Why not expand that, right? You have a whole bunch of old games, right? So I'm going to take this message and move it a different direction. Xbox took the first step and said, okay, some games will, on a case-by-case basis, decide, hey, well, let's put this over there. Let's see what happens. When are we going to start talking about PlayStation doing the same? And to be fair, why aren't we talking about Nintendo doing the same?
I mean, come on, Hargy. When we're going to talk about PlayStation doing the same? In about 2 to 3 years, because every time you hear Microsoft say something
sooner, though.
I don't think they can sustain that long. I think they're in trouble now. And their future roadmap, yes, there's the potential for more money hats. With whom? Who's going to money hat?
I would actually argue against the money hats. If you listen to Toki, if everything we were just saying, if everything Microsoft's been saying about the exclusives, which you made a good point, Hargy, because I remember Jez talking about this at one of the Xbox 2 podcasts where he said, prior to the Xbox, he had looked at documentation from right around the time of the Xbox One launch. And he said that everything that they had in that documentation, their predictions and the trends were all spot on. The challenge they had was the messaging, but everything they said about digital games, about transmedia, about
yes.
all those things they were spot on about. And so what they're telling us that they've been saying it for years that you're no longer really going to grow your walled garden pie really very much anymore with that stuff, then why wouldn't you why would you stop? Why would you continue to invest money in money hats and exclusive? Like, I understand why you might, you're not going to go overnight get rid of everything that's an exclusive because you're still keeping the brand. But again, the money aspect, to me, that's like an easy one to cut off the cost of, because we saw Jim Ryan came out at the very beginning of this generation. They fired all the shots they had at the front end. They money had it as much as they could. You remember that, like the leaks that came out that said they were going after everything, and Starfield was on the menu. They were firing out all their first party. The stuff that came out, like from, and I think some of the stuff came out after they bought ZeniMax. And Microsoft found out that they basically, Sony was thinking that they were in finish them mode, right? Mortal Kombat, when you do your little combo and you rip off the guy's head, they thought that's where they were, and they went all in. They did the code, and then the finishing move didn't happen. In fact, Microsoft's base, for as bad as their consoles are selling, their base is about the same. The monthly active users is the same. The only thing is people are still playing on the Xbox One. They haven't upgraded because they I don't know, they're just playing Fortnite over there. So if that's the case, then why would you continue to cut your margins by investing in these? And we're seeing Square's going to stop it. We've seen other companies stop it. I think
that's what I was getting at, Opium, is who's going to partner with them? Who's going to partner with them? That
they're losing money. Square Enix is the perfect example of that, right. Cargeet, to your point. Look how much of a bath they took on Final Fantasy 16.
Yeah.
Right? The game is, a lot of people, I bought it because I got it on sale for, I think, $30. So I bought it. I haven't played it yet. It's part of the backlog, but a lot of people that played through it really enjoyed it, but they closed it to this one platform, and freaking Square took a bath on it financially. So people are going to start looking.
The two things that, like, the two major publishers that have generally done that have been Koei with like Neo and stuff like that, and then now they have Rise of the Ronin, and then Square Enix, right? And Square they're not doing that. You can just tell from their language they're not doing that anymore. So that's not going to happen in future games. All the contracts that are there, they're there. You might have one or two more. That's possible because the contracts have been there for a while. And same thing with Koei Tecmo. There might be one or two more games, but ultimately that's going to dry up. That's where I'm not sure where they're going to go. Like they did with Stellar Blade, right? They went to somebody else. Okay, cool. That's what they're going to have to do. They're going to have to get smaller games or newer games from different publishers and see if that's what they can.
Aren't they big in? Aren't they pushing Korea now?
Yes, they are pushing Korea.
Isn't that what Stellar Blade is from China or Korea? It was one of those.
Korea. It's Korea.
Right?
That's where they're pushing their next big publishing. That may be where they get their money hats from next.
But that's not going to be enough because those games aren't known. They're just not. So if you're trying to say your platform is going to be, getting much more attraction because of Stellar Blade, I just don't see that. I'm sorry, but I don't.
Stellar Blade is probably going to sell about 2 million copies if I'm being fair. And it looks great. I mean, I saw something like there's a segment where she's like riding like a surfboard on her sword. It looked freaking amazing. I'm like, holy shit, that looks great. But 2 million people are going to buy that game.
Well, so did Forspoken, but that didn't work out. No.
Yeah, it's true.
So ultimately, I don't think that's enough, and I think the partnerships that were there are going to dry up. Right?
Yeah,
certainly no Western studio is going to partner directly with PlayStation only. I don't think that's going to happen. I think they're always going to be open to PC, Xbox, and PlayStation. So I think that's dried up. As far as Japan, right? That's where they've been doing these. I think that's drying up. I think people are recognizing, like you were saying, OBM, Xbox has an ecosystem. Xbox isn't just Xbox. Xbox is Windows. Xbox is cloud, and they have a good ecosystem. It's seamless. People can play wherever. It's pretty cool, and being a part of that is a good idea for that publisher. So I think that money hatting thing is going to be a challenge for them. On top of that, Hiroki Togi saying my budget, my net profit isn't what I want it to be. Why should I spend more money? Why am I going to do that? I need to make money first, right? OBM, by the way, you're talking and we can hear you again. I don't know if you're muted again.
I had to mute myself because my son came for a second. No, I was going to say, I just think it's dried up because it's not even in their strategy anymore. It doesn't. If it is in their strategy, it doesn't make sense anymore. And 100%. the one thing, because you're talking about, it is the ecosystem. People are really underrating, because I think I don't know if burn's the right word. I think a lot of people in the community, the enthusiasts, they heard all the hype about the crackdown, the power of the cloud, this and that. And I feel like there's just like that sort of remnants of that, and where it feels like it's not, all this stuff sounds like gimmicky, right? Like we went through the Connect, we went through the power of the cloud. Right now, NVIDIA's GeForce Now has 25 million people on it, right? You also have in countries like South Korea, where they have better infrastructure for internet, and they have this, like they've been receptive to these technologies. You're seeing it grow, fast over there. We heard Microsoft say they had 10% engagement through cloud. What people don't really factor is when somebody is going to make a game because, all right, we want to launch on Xbox not because of, the consoles you have in the Western homes, but you're going to reach a few million people over here on this side of the world where neither Sony nor Microsoft is really penetrated, right? Through the cloud stuff. Like that's the stuff, when they build for that, they're building for the console because they're building for the next handheld. They're building for all of it because there's no separation. And that's, I think, the concept that is really difficult to explain because their stuff's not ready to really kind of, reveal to the public in that regard. I feel like in a couple years, when people have a better understanding and they go, oh, okay, so you're going to keep making console because, well, Steam is making a Steam Deck 2, and they only, they sold 10 million. So you don't need to sell 40 million to justify it, or 50 million, right? When they get to that point, they understand that, and they understand that, oh, these developers aren't going anywhere because a cloud user counts the same as a console user, counts the same as a PC user, right? Like when they understand that engagement all counts together, and that all feeds all the stuff at the same time, I think then we'll have less of the hopefully, I think there'll be a little bit less drama and panic and oh my God, you're ruining your console sales. What are you doing? I think but it's hard for people to understand that concept right now when they themselves aren't ready to be able to lay it out. And it's a bit early, right?
So continuing with the that part of Sony's business, I don't know what happens as far as them. Like they're the ones that are kind of more in trouble here than Xbox, because no matter how you cut it, Sony banks on PlayStation. Microsoft does not bank on Xbox. They want them to grow. Obviously, they want returns. Absolutely. But if Xbox fails and has like a $5 billion loss, that does not in any way kill Microsoft. They make so much profit. It's like, yeah, okay, that sucked, but we need to fix it. That's not the end of Microsoft. If PlayStation had a $5 billion loss, that would terribly kill Sony. That's not a big, that's not something they can take. So it's very hard for them to grow. It's very hard for them to continue to money hat if they're not going to be profitable, and their slate going forward doesn't look that good. So they have challenges of their own to deal with, right? On top of that, supposedly they're launching a PS5 Pro, which it looks more and more to me like a disaster for them. But okay,
it's going to be a disaster because it's probably going to be $600. That's the rumor. Imagine.
Well, but it's not even that. It's that you have to create the infrastructure for that. You have to create the ecosystem for that. You have to now pay your developers to make the game better, which is more cost to work on this PS5 Pro, right? So that's just headaches for their developers. As it is, they need to get to PC. Now they're going to add another SKU for PlayStation. Okay, is this going to be enough of a value to them? I don't know, right? On top of that, you're delaying your next gen. If Xbox does in fact release in 2026, you're putting out your PS5 Pro this year, maybe next. That means you're going to design your PS6 next year or the year after. Dev kits get created a year later. You then ship out those dev kits. You have 2 years before you can actually put the console out. It's way out there, right? I don't know if that's viable for them to right? I mean, so if you have a 2-year, 3-year lead, come on. Like, that's huge. That's a massive boondoggle they're doing with the PS5 Pro, but whatever. If they're doing it, they're doing it. This is something they're going to have to contend with. So their world is much more in trouble than Xbox's world, where they have a whole bunch of games that a lot of people actually want to play and are willing to potentially switch over, right? Blade, indie, people want to play those games. Cool. Come on over. You don't even have to buy the console.
You don't even need to buy
PC. you can go to cloud. We're happy to have you. Right? That's their message, and it's going to be a different world, right? So I saw that coming. That's fine. What I also was expecting is that they will buy more content.
Indeed.
If you can market Japanese games, right? You buy Square, Sega, something like that. You're saying, hey, all these games, day and date in our service, available in cloud. Don't even have to buy a box, or you can buy a little cute Series S, put that under your TV for $25 a month, included in Game Pass. Enjoy. You can play indie, you can play Blade, no problem, right? They have a solution to that if you want to bring people over, right? Whereas on PlayStation, you have to, A, you're not going to have the game. B, you have to pay upfront. And then what do they have to offer you? If they have no money hats, what do they have to offer you? I don't think they can afford GTA 6 with marketing. I don't think they can afford it. I don't think Hiroki's going to pay it. No. I think they're going to say, why would I spend like upwards of $1 billion in marketing for one game, right? Because Microsoft's board said the same thing, right? They're like, we don't want to get GTA. No. It was a mistake. But they're like, no, we're not dealing with this. But I don't think that that PlayStation's going to get it. Maybe they do. Maybe they already paid for it. That's possible. And Jim paid for it years ago. But if it's up to Hiroki Totoki, do you think he's going to pony up, unintended, $1 billion?
Absolutely.
You get that?
No,
absolutely not.
No, I just don't see it.
Just not.
I don't see it.
Again, the losses that they have taken through PlayStation VR, through the not getting the numbers, which they lost $10 billion on the stock 2 Mondays ago. Then, of course, when the ABK deal signed, they lost money there on their stock. They've been hemorrhaging money left, right, and center. And obviously, $315 million budgets are just not cutting the mustard anymore. And
that's low end. The next game's
end.
More expensive.
400 million. They said according to these 400 plus million, which is just.
And oh, by the way, you guys always say that, and you're right. But what you don't add is historically your development budget is the same price as your marketing.
Yeah,
so
I've
imagine
said that. Harky was like he didn't know that. Actually, that's yep.
Yes.
Yeah, and I know that's what
price
they
of the price of development.
No way are you spending that much on marketing?
Right? You take the price of development and then you duplicate it for budget for your marketing. So like imagine how much your marketing budget is for Spider-Man. Insanity.
If they did spend that, if they did spend $300 million, you're looking at 20 million before they even break even.
Yes.
Yeah.
20 million unit sales.
Yeah. Can you imagine? Can you imagine that racket? Right. That is Disney paying Disney like an insane bag for the pleasure of using the IP, and then after that, using pretty much the entire budget of the development cycle to then market their game so that Disney can make like
more money.
Disney's winning. Like they're the only ones winning in this.
Well, this is why I'm going to stand on my stone here and say that Spider-Man 2018 is coming to Xbox. That's a fact. Is that going to happen tomorrow? No. But if they want to make money, they need to do what Xbox is doing and put games that are old. It's 6 years old. Yep. It would sell 5 million copies easily on Xbox. I would rebuy it because, well, I want to play it on Xbox. But listen.
I'd say it might come to Switch. Switch 2.
It could play it. Switch. And it would sell like freaking hotcakes. It absolutely would. It's just, listen, times are changing, folks. The graybeards, the 4 guys that are in front of you here, many people in the chat, we just have to understand, we may not ever accept it all, but we definitely have to understand that the industry is changing. The new gamers, the iPad gamers that, came out of the womb and they know how to use an iPhone better than us, they're the targeted audience, and they don't care where they play. And this is why Xbox, who is getting the hours right now for doing some of the things, the whole play anywhere thing, they were on the pulse of what was happening. That is happening right now, and they're going to be ahead of the curve. But we will see what happens. Look, folks, this has been
one little thing that I think is key is Game Pass. You keep mentioning that, right?
Absolutely,
you have to have enough customers for it, and I think they have the strategy, right? Even if you lose console customers, the strategy is to get people onto the ad tier, which I hope they do a good job with that, because that could absolutely increase their market share in countries where Xbox has had none, right? Because you don't need a console at that point. You just say, hey, you know what? You can just have this $5
Have
a
the
month
ad
or
tier.
$2 a month,
It's half the price, and there you
right?
go. You got ads.
But if I remember right, they were not including cloud. Am I remembering that? Does anybody remember the verbiage around it? It was supposed to be older games, Xbox only games, but not the third party stuff. And then I think they didn't include cloud. Is that right?
I think so as well. I think you may have gotten a higher tier if you wanted the cloud offering. Yeah.
Yeah, I think they need to remedy that. I think they need to give them cloud.
They need to give them cloud as well. Yeah.
With ad tier, and that would be the entry to get into homes all over the world, which they are woefully behind. And then they have to market it right. They have to get people to understand what the heck they're getting.
Yeah, no,
So,
that's going to be the key. The marketing is definitely going to be key. Listen, let me catch up on these last super chats. We'll get everyone out of here. JD Gamer drops a very generous $10 super chat and says hardware is like software, and those PlayStation VR 2.0s are sitting in a warehouse collecting dust. They sold a quarter of what they originally projected. That division in PlayStation is done, cooked over. PlayStation is in trouble indeed. RC Polygons drops an additional $10 super chat and says, with Sea of Thieves needing a Microsoft account to play on PlayStation, I can see Microsoft merging Activision's accounts with Microsoft. So you have you have to sign into a Microsoft account to play Call of Duty. I mean, it's certainly possible. It's all about the MAUs. That's what they want, and that's what the business model has changed to, and that's what it's going to continue to be. Spartan 661 drops not one but $2 super chat and says, I'm sorry, but OBM looks like a young Kevin Feige. I love it. That's good stuff. And I bet he wishes he had like Feige's money.
Yeah, that's all I care about.
And the second super chat says, "We love your takes, OBM. I'm a fan, and I'm not making fun." Obviously, you know, it's all fun there, brother. Thank you so much for the generosity. Gamer by Choice drops a very generous $2 super chat and says, "MS turned Sony and PlayStation from a rival to a top earner." That's a phenomenal point. And wow, MASH has now gifted another 10. Wow, dude. That is crazy generous of you. 10 Double Barrel Gaming memberships. Please, if you did get one, thank MASH in the chat. I'd greatly appreciate it. And brother, that is very kind of you. Thank you for being here. And of course, thank you for the generosity. And lastly, Gamer by Choice drops an additional $5 super chat and says, Microsoft messaging may be questionable, but people are fearful of change, and that helped cause messaging issues. Some did not see the future until PlayStation did it. Yeah, I mean, I agree to some extent, but their messaging has always been horrendous, and it annoys the F out of me that they have not fixed that. I don't understand that. They are a $1 trillion company. Get the right people to make the right messaging. If they want to hire me, trust me, I could do messages for you for a quarter of what you're going to pay some of these people. But with that said, folks, that's going to do it for this episode of Primetime Gaming. Let's get to the outros. We'll start first with OBM. Brother, thank you so much for the incredible hot takes. Thank you for taking the time to be here. Super appreciate it. Where can people follow you on social media, and what else you got going on?
Well, yeah. Well, first of all, Boom, like usual, thank you for the invite. It was fun, like I thought it would be. And you know, I said a lot of words today. You know, I went in a lot of different directions. But if you could just remember one thing, it's let them pay. Let them pay. If somebody wants to subsidize something that you enjoy, let them do it. If they want to, stay in the virtuous cycle on the winning box. And you know what? While you're at it, feel free to mail me some Chipotle gift cards. Anything.
I see you, OBM. I see you. We had charged them more. Now it's let them pay. Okay, I feel you. All right.
I feel like somebody should make a T-shirt out of that. I think.
Yeah, the idea is crystallizing as we speak. Yeah. Oh, look at that.
If it's free, it's for me, right? I mean, that's the new tagline.
But yeah, if you want to find me right now, find me on Twitter. My handle is Mutha_1 MUTHA_ONE. And like usual, I'm sure I'll sneak in the back door again here sometime soon, Boom. But it was a great time being with you guys. Great seeing everybody.
Pause.
Indeed. A lot of pause on the show, for instance.
Y'all did it to me. It's only my turn.
It's only right, sir. It is only right. So yeah, thank you, OBM. Super appreciate you being here. Kay Asante, let's say your brand, brother. You have a big show coming up on Saturday. obviously the Gaming Circle podcast. Who is going to be guesting? Obviously, you're going to be with the kneeless one. I don't know if his knees grew back yet, but I'm never going to say you said he was right, and he's not listening, so you never heard that from me. Sell the brand, brother. Where could people tune in to Saturday morning? One of the best shows there. And more importantly, follow you on social media. But you also have a show on Mondays with John Wolf that kind of really gets into the nitty gritty, if you will, of the PCMR.
Yes, indeed. So first off, obviously, thank you so much for all the great people that are always in here, always showing support on a Wednesday night, and of course OBM. When you hear it's a party, you lay it down. We always appreciate you. Thank you so much for being here. Yeah, exactly. It's a party. You lay it down. Pause. Yes. So myself and of course the Everborn Saga will be hosting the Gaming Circle podcast on Saturday. Everborn tells me he is trying to invite a very interesting guest. He wouldn't tell me who it was. All he said was that we need to make more of an effort to reach across the aisle. So we shall see. Okay. We'll see how it goes this weekend. It should be interesting, right? That's the first thing I thought. I was like, okay, this is going to be interesting. We shall see. So this Saturday, come check us out. And of course, Monday nights, myself and Mr. John Wolf like to get into that PC talk, a lot of handheld talk, a lot of VR, all these things. We enjoy gaming in all avenues. And if you are one who may not understand some of those aspects of it, as John Wolf says, don't be a missionary gamer. Join us and discover other avenues that you could potentially be gaming with as well. So come check us out on Monday nights. But thank you guys so much for being here, and we appreciate it. And see you next week.
Appreciate it very much, brother. Thank you so much. And lastly, in no way least, one of the representatives for Game On Daily, and that's the folks. Listen, if you don't know them already, shame on you. They have an amazing podcast. They have an amazing hosts, a group of hosts. They do a bunch of shows. Obviously, Asa is phenomenal. He's very knowledgeable in what he knows about the industry. And of course, if you like sauce, pause. If you like slander, well, you look no further than Gaz. And obviously, he has his own Septic Sauce channel. Please, by all means, Hargeet, talk about that. But also remind the people that on Sundays, you're also with Jay Fonzarelli, one of the powerful voices in the community, on his show.
Of course. So check out GameOnDaily.com. It's a nice news aggregation site for gaming news just for you. And then YouTube.com/GameOnDaily to check out the main channel. Our general podcast go live is on 4 p.m. Saturdays, U.S. Eastern Time. Check that out. And I will actually be tomorrow on Black Vikings. So it's the Longhorn podcast. Longhouse podcast. Okay. And that's the channel name, correct?
Yes.
So yeah, check that out tomorrow. I think it's 8:00 U.S. Eastern Time on that channel. So check that out. I will be on 108 Dragons TV's podcast on Saturday, 6 p.m. U.S. Eastern Time. And it's 108 Dragons TV.
Yes.
That's the channel. And then this Sunday, I will not be on Games Talk Live. I'll be flying out to California. So I will not be available for that. We might shift that to Tuesday. We'll see. So that might happen then. I'll probably be missing that. I might be missing this one next week as well. Okay. We'll have to see if I'm available. I probably won't be. I think it's 4:00 over there, and I think we'll still be working at that time.
Mm-hmm.
So I might be missing Primetime Gaming. But yeah, so usually though, I will be here on Primetime Gaming as well. And you can catch me at 8chani on HCHANI on Xbox or Discord.
Well, again, thank
nice
you so
talking
much
to OBM.
Yes.
Always a pleasure to talk to OBM, whether it's party chats or on a podcast. I'll catch you guys, and boom. Next.
Absolutely, brother. Well, thank you so much for being here, Hargeet. And of course, big thank you to all of the super chats and the channel memberships that continue to support the channel. Obviously, those allow Mrs. Boom and I to do the big giveaways. We do have 4 giant giveaways that we're doing 4 shows. That's going to equal a little bit over $3,500 worth of prizes. And we can't do that without, of course, the support. So we're always humbled and grateful for it. And of course, I want to thank everyone for being here. And I'm going to close out the show with something that's incredibly important to me, folks. Hopefully one day be important to you. And that's something that my dad taught us when we were kids. And he would say, Craig, treat others how you want to be treated. And also, it doesn't cost anything to be nice. You live by those rules, son. I can guarantee you're going to have an awesome day. So take care, everyone. And we'll see you next week on the newest episode of Primetime Gaming with Mr. Boomstick and Friends.